Welcome to episode 157 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today's guest is Jim Hinckley. He's a lifelong traveler, storyteller, historian, and the founder of Jim Hinckley's America. Jim is best known for his deep knowledge of Route 66, but his story is really about what happens when you stop living on autopilot and choose curiosity, connection, and contribution later in life. In our conversation, Jim shares how reaching his 50s forced him to rethink what success really meant and why chasing meaning mattered more than chasing things. Here are a few key takeaways from my conversation with Jim. First, he explains how turning 50 brought a new awareness that life is too short to stay stuck, and how that realization pushed him to build a life centered on travel, storytelling, and service. Second, he talks about why travel is not just about adventure, but about discovering America's diversity, breaking out of our bubbles, and realizing just how much we have in common. Third, Jim shares why staying relevant after 50 means learning new skills, embracing technology, and being willing to reinvent yourself even when the learning curve feels steep. Fourth, he explains how storytelling, whether through books, podcasts, or conversations with strangers in cafes, gives life purpose by preserving history, building community, and inspiring others to explore. Finally, Jim reminds us that getting older does not mean becoming irrelevant. It can mean becoming freer, more open, and more willing to mentor, encourage, and contribute in new ways. I think you'll really enjoy Jim's wisdom, humor, and perspective on living fully after turning 50. To tell us more about what gives his life more meaning and purpose today, please welcome adventurer Jim Hinckley to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Jim. I really appreciate it. You are doing something that most people over 50 dream of, and that's developing a nomadic lifestyle, and where you're going where you want to go and seeing things that you've always wanted to see. How did that come about?
And there was an intermittent period. I was born a gypsy, kind of. My folks used to, at the most inopportune times, tease me about being potty trained along the highway. And that spell with truck driving and other things, so I was always nomadic. And then I became stagnant. I had a 9-to-5 job, a family, all the things that go with that. And I reached a point in my mid-50s where I developed eye trouble, I guess you could say. I couldn't no longer see any reason to put up with my boss's BS, and they couldn't see any reason to put up with my increasingly poor attitude. And my dear wife said, "You love to travel, you love to share stories, you love to inspire people to take a road trip. Let's do something about it." And so here we are.
That's neat. What caused your priorities to shift more from an achievement mindset and career to wanting one that has more meaning and legacy?
Life is too short, and you start having a more of an awareness about that as you get that 50 and then the 60 milestone. You start realizing there's got to be more to life than just accumulating things and, sacrificing too much of your life for that. You got to find a balance.
I agree. Looking back, what surprised you most about how your purpose evolved after turning 50?
It's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Probably should have done it sooner. If I had one complaint, if I could just figure out a way to make $1 or $2 more doing it, there's tremendous satisfaction, because not just for me personally, but it's the people I meet, the relationships I've made. It's providing a service, hearing from people that I've inspired a road trip, working with schools to develop educational programs, and then hearing from the students that I've inspired them to do something different. That's a feeling you just can't beat.
It sounds very inspiring to be able to do that, to plant that travel bug into young kids today who are stuck indoors on their screens most of the time, to actually encourage them to get out and enjoy an adventure, a real adventure.
It's not just the adventure, it's also discovering America, discovering the diversity of the American story. And getting out of your bubble, realizing that we have more in common than separate, and finding out that the world isn't one dimension. It's vibrant, it's colorful, and it's more than cubicle life.
One of the things that I like about your platform and what you're doing is that you're encouraging people to explore the back roads, to take the road less traveled. What a message for a society that is just stuck in busy mode.
What I tapped into was I have a passion for the American story, and people always told me I had a gift for telling people where to go. And maybe I misunderstood what they were saying, but I decided with my dearest friend's encouragement to put the two together. And it has been the most amazing adventure. If I would have started this earlier, to be honest, I may not have been ready. But this has been an incredible adventure that I never imagined. I've had the opportunity to speak at events in Zlin, Czechia. I've been in Poland and Slovakia, and I've friendships, people from all over the world. Last night I had dinner with a business associate from Bratislava, Slovakia. It's an amazing adventure.
It sounds like it. What do you think draws so many people over 50 to the idea of living life on the road?
I think part of it's economic, and some of it, COVID, I think, played a big part in this. It was a shocking realization that life is short, it's chaotic, and there's got to be more than just the cubicle life, being 9 to 5. We have to pay the bills, and we're used to eating on a regular basis, so we want to keep that going. You've got to strike that balance. You got to strike the balance between eating, paying the bill, and just living to work.
That's right. How do you balance the romance of travel with the realities of daily life on the road, though?
That becomes a challenge, especially as we age, because in my mind's eye, I'm still 20, but it doesn't take long when you're out on the road changing tires or adapting to motels or food to realize I'm not 20 anymore. But that gives you a different perspective as well, because you're more seasoned and you can become more open to things. You have a choice when you age. Become rigid and locked in a mindset, or you can see it as a liberation that you're free to experience and do things different. It's like a lady I met that her goal was to go skydiving at 90 for her 90th birthday. And I asked her, because I've never had the gumption to do that. And she says, at 90, what do I have to lose? That's a little cold, but when you think about it, that's the liberation of getting older.
It is indeed. Is there any advice you would offer to older travelers who may want to experience Route 66, especially for the first time?
If you're doing Route 66, just get out and do it. Take time and listen to people and talk to people. Talk to the people you meet in cafes. Talk to the people you meet traveling. Route 56 specifically, because of its international appeal, is unlike any other road trip you'll take, because it's morphed into a living time capsule like Colonial Williamsburg, but with an overlay of Disneyland. And then thrown into the mix is this incredible international culture, not just travelers, but international that are enamored with Route 66 and are starting on Route 66. And so it's such a dynamic mix. You can be sitting in a cafe in Texas and talking to 85-year-old farmers at the same time you're talking to a German motorcycle group from Berlin. And the food. You can go and find authentic ethnic foods of any kind. The Grand Central Market in Los Angeles or at Yukon, Oklahoma, they host the world's largest, outside of Czechoslovakia, The world's largest Czechoslovakian cultural festival is in Yukon, Oklahoma. You can have all these cultural experiences and yet enjoy biscuits and gravy for breakfast.
That's a great perspective. Are there any particular places along Route 66 that really feel like home when you visit?
Yeah, all of it. It's such a fascinating mix. Route 56 is not our most historic or most scenic highway, but it's always had the best press and publicity. And so as a result, this highway that officially doesn't even exist anymore is morphed into a living Norman Rockwell painting. But that tells you how old I am right there. I know who Norman Rockwell is. But on top of that, it's modern. It's dynamic. The world's only electric vehicle museum is being put together on Route 66. But at the same time, directly across the street is a diner that opened in January of 1940.
That's cool. And where does this take place?
Kingman, Arizona.
In Kingman.
You'll find cafes on Route 66. And because of its popularity, it's intriguing. You've got like the Berghoff in Chicago. One family-owned, authentic German restaurant that opened in 1898. You'll find in Veneta, Oklahoma, Clanton's Cafe. One family-owned diner that opened in 1927. Pretty neat stuff.
What inspired you to start Jim Hinckley's America? And how did that lifelong passion for travel turn into a full platform?
Oh, so many things that we have to read. That's another challenge as we age. Being able to learn to adapt and reinvent ourselves. And I've had to do this multiple times because things change. I did truck driving. I did underground mining, all kinds of different things over the years. But when my job started to become crushable and with help from my dear friend, my wife of 43 years, she encouraged me. I love to share stories and I love to inspire road trips. Let's see if we can do this. And that opened a whole new can of worms because I'm basically modern Amish. Anything newer than Model A Ford technology, boy, I'm lost. And to promote books, to tell stories, to reach an international audience and a younger audience, I've had to teach myself how to develop a podcast and how to build a website and all these different things that I've had to learn. It's made a really interesting way to share stories now.
Did that require a big learning curve for you?
Oh, every day is a big learning curve. And one of the advantages, there's always a silver lining in everything. And like I had to replace the 10-year-old computer system this last couple of weeks. And it's a booger. Stuff that they said would take 2 or 3 hours to set up, it's taken me 2 days. But the good news with technology, one of the silver lining, is when you're involved with learning new technical skills and programs, you never have to look for an excuse to grant.
As somebody who had to replace his laptop just a couple of weeks ago himself, I know what you're talking about.
It's just a constant as we age too about remaining relevant. And while travel is a big part of it, travel has changed and adapted. But there's a freedom in aging if we allow it. We accept the limitations that come with age and we learn to adapt. I just did a dinner program for a group a couple of weeks ago that decided that their one commonality was that they all had a passion for Model A Ford. And so they decided to get together in Chicago. They drove their cars to Chicago from all over the country. One couple was all the way from San Diego, and they did Route 66 and Model A Ford.
That's fun. What kind of stories and people are you most drawn to highlight on Jim Hinckley's America?
I try to never make it a Jew show. I want to provide inspiration for people. I want to provide encouragement, and I want to share America's diverse story. So yesterday I had a website designer as my guest, and she is deeply involved with retro road trips and mid-century modern. She has a website, does architectural stuff. A few weeks before that, I had the mayor of Needle, California, talking about a renaissance in our community based around Route 66 heritage tourism, cultural tourism. I've had Richard Lentinello recently. He was with Hemmings Motor News for many years, and at about age 60, he decided to start his own magazine in an era when magazines are disappearing.
Right.
And so I try to get a diverse array of guests. I've had artists, authors, community developers, historians. I've had people come on and talk about the researching sites associated with the Green Book for the Negro motorist. I've had sculptors on. It's diverse. And the core of it is to share America's story and inspire road trips by telling people where to go.
And that's road trips anywhere, not just Route 66, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, Route 56 is a big part of everything I do. Really relatively minor in the sense that my pa always told me the world's round. If you head east long enough, you're out west. That's the way I look at Route 56, the gateway drug. It gets you started on, if you've gotten out of touch with road trips, Route 66 will be the catalyst to reignite a passion for adventure on the open road. And there's so many great roads. US 6 is a fascinating road. I've yet to drive it all, but US 6 was originally the longest US highway, and was also the only highway I know that went north and south, east and west, from Cape Cod, Massachusetts to Long Beach, California. It has incredible roads. US 12 to southern Michigan. It's just spectacular.
What has surprised you most about the global fascination with Route 66?
I have trouble with that because first of all, it's a road, for God's sake. And it's a highway that officially no longer even exists. But yet it has this international fan club. And I go back to the fact that Cyrus Avery and a group of visionaries in 1927 created the U.S. Highway 66 Association. And the goal was to get the road paved and to promote the highway. And they did such a good job with their marketing that this road has evolved into something far more than a highway. It symbolizes the quintessential American road trip, the ultimate American experience. When I was in Czechia at an event, the second European Route 66 Festival, I had a gentleman, very profound. We were talking about growing up behind the Iron Curtain, listening to Radio Free America, watching bootleg copies of Easy Rider. And he said, that song, Route 66, movies like Easy Rider, Route 66 for his generation came to symbolize the freedom that a previous generation saw in the Statue of Liberty.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
Yeah, deep and profound.
I know that you've got this Coffee with Jim show, and it feels more like an online diner conversation. Was it intentional that you developed it that way?
Actually, the whole Jim Hinckley's America started out initially is I was trying to figure out how to sell books and promote books. And so that's how this whole thing got started. And the podcast, Coffee with Jim, I wanted to take people along with me. And as a virtual diner that's how it evolved. I wanted it to be a live stream program, which opened a whole can of worms. I learned after I was doing that people don't do that for a reason, because it just opened the door for a multitude of just problems. But I wanted to be a live stream program so people could interact like a diner. We could sit down and talk about road trips, adventures, community development. How do you write a book? How do you build a website? All these different things. And then, of course, I publish it on various platforms. But the idea was initially to get people interested in road trips, so they would get interested in my book. But quickly, I shifted the focus. I wanted to put the spotlight on these fascinating people, the people you meet when you travel, the friendships you can make, and how technology plays a role in there. That we shouldn't be fearful of technology. We just have to be aware of its dark side, if you will.
There is a dark side, that's for sure. You've written more than 20 books now. How do you keep finding new angles and topics to write about?
My goal is, I've always loved books, even when I was a kid. All my life, I've loved books. And I entertained as a child that maybe I'd be a writer someday, but I never thought I would because I was always blue collar. And my dearest friend, she encouraged me. And I've written my 23rd book just came out, Route 66, 100 Years of Route 66 Centennial Anthology. And I'm working on becoming a writer when I will. That's my new goal. What the definition of a writer is before I go too deep into the book.
I'd love to know.
A writer is somebody that's the only thing you do for a living is the written word, and you can still afford to eat every second day.
It's about right.
But it opens doors. Writing has opened incredible doors, and it's allowed me to encourage people to travel and travel to discover America's story, to discover America through their travel. And the book, as far as coming up with ideas, it's endless. My initial writing was all on the early American auto industry, specifically the people behind the auto industry, 1890 through about 1930 period. That's where a lot of my early writing. And it intersected with travel and Route 66. For example, in 1915, Edsel Ford traveled the National Trails Road, which became Route 56 in 1926. And so there started to be an overlap on these projects. But I've written on ghost towns of the Southwest, ghost towns of Route 66. I even wrote the Route 56 encyclopedia. So there's always a diverse array of subjects. My next one that I'm hoping to find somebody on is a book entitled Bathtubs, Bird Cages, and Chevrolet.
What's that going to be about?
It'll focus on the people of the auto industry. The bathtubs part of this comes from David Buick, a Scotch immigrant who came to the United States and started a plumbing supply business. And he patented the method for affixing porcelain to cast iron, giving us the cast iron bathtub. And the bird cages, we had the 3 P's in the team. The luxury car makers, Packard, Peerless, and Pierce Arrow. They were the premier luxury automobile manufacturers. Pierce Arrow started out making bird cages, ice boxes, a variety of buckets before they went into automobile manufacture. And Chevrolet, we know the name, but we don't know the man. And Louis Chevrolet had a interesting and diverse career. And if you really want to stir up an American car enthusiast, tell them that Chevrolet's an import. That'll always get their attention. But Louis Chevrolet was from France. Another great immigrant story.
It sounds like it. That would be neat to have that in a book form to keep that memory and person alive. What do you love most about the process of writing?
Absolutely nothing. No, one of the things, I'm a firm believer that if a person we all are blessed with gifts and talent, and we have a responsibility to develop those gifts and talents to be a blessing unto others. And the writing, I enjoy storytelling in all its forms. The frustration with writing is, for me, it's almost an obsession. I have to write every day. And dealing with publishers, book companies, editors, all those kind of things. That's the cross we bear to become a writer, a published writer.
That's right. And how does writing about small towns and forgotten places and forgotten people help you maintain and develop a sense of gratitude and purpose?
Oh, God. Ghost towns. Let's start with those. That'll keep a person focused and humble. It'll keep you from getting prideful. You start seeing these places that people had their dreams, everything wrapped up in, and how short that was. It keeps you from taking yourself too seriously in life. Royal Lake, Nevada is an example. It was literally a tent city. In 5 years, it went from a tent city to one of the most modern, booming communities in the United States. 3-story bank building with elevators, and it was a train station. It was just a boom town, modern town. 5 years later, it was almost completely empty.
Wow. What caused that?
It was a collapse in the mines weren't as profitable as they thought they were. The ore bodies weren't as big as the investors had hoped.
Okay, that's fair enough. And so writing about that kind of keeps that alive. There is a Disney movie that was released a few years ago where the overall theme of it was that you're not really forgotten until people stop talking about you.
I attended a conference some years ago, and my head's a file cabinet where everybody just tosses things in it and it's all mixed together. And then somebody put the drawers in upside down. So I got all these random things in my head. My pa said it was better to fill your head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. But I had a speaker, and I attended a conference. And the first thing he come up with, right out of the gate, says, "Quick, who was the vice president in 1958? And you don't know. And he says, "Think about that." At that time, it was like 45 years ago. And he says, "Think about that. 45 years ago, that was the second most important person in the world. And today, nobody remembers who he is."
Very good point. What gives your life meaning and joy at this stage?
Oh, God, it's so many levels. Probably the greatest joy we have in all is the friendships we've made, the people we've met, and incredible opportunities that we've had to do things and experience things. For example, a few years back, we were in Germany, and a family we've gotten to know fairly well through my writing, and I was speaking at some schools in Germany, and they surprised us with an anniversary present. A night in a castle on the Rhine River.
That would be an adventure. I would love to do that.
Yeah, and it's not something in my wildest imagination when I was working. I never imagined that these kind of things would be possible for somebody like me. And it's not that I'm underselling myself. It's just that I had got my mindset of working people don't do these. I was not dissatisfied buying a house, raising a family, having a good job. I was satisfied with that, but I didn't realize that you could go further and deeper.
That's right. Those self-limiting beliefs can be rather nasty in closing doors that we would like to open. How do the people you meet along your travels shape your thinking and teach you like the meaning of life or give your life more purpose?
I'm still working on that. It's a changing situation. There's humbling experiences in life. Oatman, Arizona, on Route 6, this is an example. It's for people who aren't familiar, Oatman's an old mining town turned tourist mecca. And it's a lot of fun. But the key to fame there is the burros, the donkeys, have free reign in town. They wander into the stores. And the mayor in Oatman is the most honest politician I have ever met. His name is Walter. And he's an ass and doesn't claim to be anything else. He's a donkey that they put a hat on, and he wanders through town, greets tourists, signs books. I was really proud of myself because I had 9,000 followers on Facebook. And I did a book signing at Oakman, and they asked me to pose for a picture with the mayor. The part of the sirens outside the office here. The mayor, of course, is Walter. He's a donkey. And I was really proud of myself because I had 9,000 followers. And I get home and my wife says, "Did you see this? Walter has 240,000 followers on Facebook." Now that's humbling. And that tells you that I guess I'm just not a big enough ass. I don't know. But
that is funny.
And you get yourself into things, but meeting people from so many diverse backgrounds, you learn. I've always been very open-minded to meet people, but this has really broadened the scope of that. You get a chance to meet people from the most incredible and diverse background. I have spoken at private dinners with Nobel Prize winning cardiologists, Nat Geo paleontologists. I've met with people who have incredible military careers that you would never suspect that have done just amazing things in life. And then you blend that with cultural experiences, especially on Route 66, meeting people from literally all over the world. And it's centric. Mm-hmm. I had the distinct pleasure. I had a fellow from France, and I try to answer and respond to people as much as I can, but he was asking all these questions about Route 66. What I didn't know was that he was planning on trying to set a world record, stilt walking, from one end of Route 66 to the other. Unfortunately, I have a very dark sense of humor, and he's a French mime, as it turns out, and he was trying to do 6-foot stilts from Chicago to Santa Monica, and he made it to Oklahoma before he was overcome with the heat. And the first thing that came to my mind was, how does a French mime call for help in Oklahoma? But
that's funny. In your writings, you often talk about community revitalization. Why is that so important to you?
That's the key to everything. If you're going to revitalize an historic district, if you're going to build a successful economic development plan, you've got to build a network of cooperative partnerships. And the foundation for that is fostering development of a sense of community and community purpose. It's just crucial for anything. You have to have that first. It's always a challenge because a lot of people have never learned to play well with others. So getting people to come together, that's a challenge in an art form.
I would imagine it would be a challenge, but it would be so important to be able to invest your time, talent, and energy into something like that, to preserve that past, to keep us tied to that era.
This is another place where as we get over 50, that we have a tendency to become the world, even if they don't mean to, we get pushed aside. There's so many things you can do to contribute to this. Reach out to your community college and offer to help develop community education programs. Share your expertise, your knowledge, whatever it is. You can use that to foster that development of a sense of community. Pull people together. If you're knowledgeable about area history, you pull people together, you teach that history, and you create a commonality. It's cooking, whatever it is. You can pull people together. You start with that common denominator, and you can foster development of that sense of community.
That's a very good point. What do you still hope to accomplish in the years leading up to Route 66 centennial celebration?
I'm working on the Route 66 bicentennial. Chances are I won't be here for that. I've surprised myself in the past. We need to take this a step further. Route 66 has become, like say, a living time capsule. It is the entire American story encapsulated. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. We have parts of Route 66 that overlay the Santa Fe Trail in New Mexico. There's villages along Route 66 in New Mexico that have been there for over 1,000 years. You have Civil War battlefields. You have all of these different chapters in America's story on Route 66. And now that it has become the Colonial Williamsburg kind of thing, we need to ensure that continues. We need to keep that alive for a new generation and for the next generations. And so I want to be a part of that. And part of that is Jim Hinckley's American Network, the books I write, speaking in school. And part of it's a willingness to learn from students, for example, that I'm talking with.
And one of the things that it sounds like you're looking at doing next year would be starting a podcast specifically for seasoned citizens. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I've been kicking this around, particularly as I'm within spitting distance of 70 and 60s. I can barely see it in the rearview mirror. So and I'm increasingly aware of how easy it is to become irrelevant. And how do we do this? And there's so much, we've got all this experience, all these things we've learned, all the things we've learned not to do. We can share that, and it's needed. We can become mentors for another generation. We can travel, and we can use our travel to help others. Not only broaden our own perspectives, but we can use it to help others. Part of that is adapting to new technology, finding ways to use it, but maintaining that relevance. And there's a secondary part to this technology and relevance. It is supplemental income of we. The internet has opened incredible doors for frustration and for diversifying and learning new skill sets. You may not get wealthy, but you can supplement your income with use of the internet and technology.
I agree with that. That is absolutely true. And it'd be neat to see more seasoned citizens putting their knowledge and wisdom to work in that direction.
Yes.
When you think about legacy, what do you hope that your storytelling will leave behind?
I don't know how to say it. It's something I get in. A couple of years back, I was involved with the Kingman Main Street project. They wanted to create a narrated historic district walking tour. And it was something I was really excited to do because we used QR code technology and preserving its history, building a sense of community. It checked all the boxes for what I'm passionate about. They had a stipulation, and my wife and I had to stew on this for a few months, but they said, we also want to tie this in the starting point at Depot Plaza that they were creating with public art. They commissioned a bronze statue of me. And I had a lot of trouble with that because I don't want it to ever be a gym show. But my legacy, if I have a legacy, it's simply to inspire people to explore. And that can be travel, that can be exploring new technologies, explore the possibilities, explore opportunities. So if I have a legacy, that's what I'd like it to be, that I've encouraged people to be that.
If you could turn the clock back, is there anything you'd do differently?
No, because all the stupid things I did, all the goofy things and all those other things, they're the reason I'm the person I am today, and they're the reason I'm where I'm at today, for good and bad. So they've all contributed to where I'm at this point in life. And no, I couldn't say I'd want to change any of it.
Good for you. Is there any advice that you could give to people over 50 who are struggling with what to do to give their lives meaning and purpose?
Yeah, keep going. It's really easy, especially, I know it sounds over the simplistic, keep breathing. But this is it. Just because we're old doesn't mean we're dead.
Yes.
There's things you can do. I spoke recently at a conference in Colorado, and there's a gentleman I met that I just could not fathom. The short version of his story is he was headed for the Olympics as a young man, late teens, And he developed a rare eye condition and in a matter of months was totally blind. And he, of course, went into a massive pit of depression. But a fella in New England had started a school to help blind people build confidence. A rock climbing school.
Blind
And Eric went to the school, and since then, Eric has done amazing things. He's climbed the highest peaks on every continent. He's the first blind person to kayak the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And he has started a nonprofit organization for disabled people, including blind, people who've lost limbs, to challenge themselves, to find something always something you can do. And he encourages and challenges these people. That's the kind of inspiration that we can offer as we age.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be spectacular like that either. We don't have to be blind to really prove something. It's just step out and do it.
Exactly. There's a really incredible, it was an experimental thing in the Netherlands I encountered. It was combining a daycare center with a senior center. Having elderly people, even in wheelchairs and things, helping with the children in this preschool. And the elderly people had a purpose. They were inspired. They were sharing their life, their knowledge, everything they had to offer. And these children, think of the experience that they had for the rest of their life.
That's right, because many of them don't grow up with their biological grandparents. So what a great opportunity for all the generations. How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about you and follow you in your adventures?
It's real easy. Jim Hinckley's America, Hinkley. And my email is just jimhinkley@jimhinkleysamerica.com. That's the best way. And you can find the Coffee with Jim podcast on Podbean. Instagram, I'm working on developing a YouTube channel, that's a whole new animal. and we talk about this getting old and getting older and how we adapt. And one of the challenges in that is accepting the fact that you're getting older. You can't do some of the things you used to do. I started working on a 50 Chevy panel truck recently. And again, in my head, I'm 20. I learned pretty quickly that I might be a little too old for muscle and transmissions and doing things of this nature. So I sold the panel truck before I killed myself. You got to realize that there's limitations as we age. But that doesn't mean we're dead.
That's right. Just because you can't do some things doesn't mean you have to give up on everything.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. Thank you very much for sharing your story with me today, Jim. I find it extremely inspirational. You offer a lot of great practical advice for seasoned citizens. So I wish you the best of luck in continuing with your platform and reaching out and touching lives. I think it's inspirational.
Thank you.
Jim Hinckley is the author of more than 20 books and a passionate advocate for travel, storytelling, and community. What stood out most to me about Jim's story is how clearly he sees his purpose at this stage of life. For him, meaning comes from the people he meets on the road, the friendships he has built around the world, and the opportunity to inspire others to explore America and their own possibilities. After turning 50, Jim chose curiosity over comfort. He chose contribution over accumulation, and he chose to keep learning, adapting, and sharing his gifts, even when it meant stepping into unfamiliar territory with new technology, writing, and public speaking. Jim's message is a great reminder that experience and wisdom matters, and there is always something meaningful we can offer, whether it's through mentoring, teaching, writing, traveling, or simply bringing people together. If you'd like to learn more about Jim, follow his travels, or connect with his work, you can find him at jimhinkleysamerica.com. You can also listen to his Coffee with Jim podcast, where conversations feel more like sitting down in a diner and talking about life, travel, and the American story. You can reach Jim directly by email at jimhinkley@jimhinkleysamerica.com. Jim's books, including his newest titled Route 66 100 Years and the Route 66 Encyclopedia, are available on Amazon and in other bookstores. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.